Alright, did everyone get an exam? You will have 90 minutes to take this exam. Before we get started, I just want each of you to quickly look to your left. Now that's idiot number 1. Now look to your right. That's idiot number 2. And if you cheat on either one of them, that makes you idiot number 3. It's that time of year. You roll up to class in your new kicks, and maybe a matching Gucci mask to go along with it. The professor hands out the syllabus, and you eagerly grab it. Or maybe you download it if it's a PDF. Because this is the semester that you finally stop being an alcoholic. This is finally the semester that you turn your act around. This is finally the semester that you get the grades that you want so you can get into the medical/graduate school of your dreams. This is a semester that you finally get that coveted straight A's. Back to school, bitch. I just want to start out this video by saying that I think that getting straight A's is completely overrated. In fact, if you're getting straight A's, your schedule is too easy. You're not challenging yourself. You need to take a harder course load. The goal is not to get straight A's. The ultimate goal is to learn something useful so that one day you can apply it. I mean, on our tombstone, they're not gonna write, "Here lies Meganambie, a straight A student." No, instead it's gonna say something like, "Here lies Meganambie, YouTuber." But there's still a lot of value in getting good grades, right? I mean, if you're going to apply to medical or graduate school later, they're gonna look at your grades as a measure of some sort of academic potential. I mean, these days, if you don't have a 4.0, looks like you're not becoming a doctor. I mean, other than getting good grades so that you can impress someone else in the future, that you can prove yourself academically, there's a lot of value in learning something rigorously in a class. I mean, when else are we going to be able to learn chemistry or any subject with formalism? But in my opinion, getting good grades in school is more strategy than intelligence. In fact, if I were to break it down, I would say it's probably 60% strategy, 20% intelligence, and 20% giving a shit. And I say this because I know there are a lot of people out there who they think when they get a B in a class, they think that it's over for them. They can never pursue that subject ever again. Oh my goodness, I got a B in chemistry, so I can never be a successful chemist in the future. And that's just simply not true. So this video is going to be tailored mostly to studying at university or college. If you are in high school, I mean, we all know how to get straight A's in high school. Cheat off the valedictorian. But before we get started, I'll tell you what this video is not going to tell you. This video is not going to tell you that you should go find a quiet place to study. This video is not going to tell you what color Muji pens you should use when taking notes. Now don't get me wrong, Muji, if you ever want to sponsor me in the future, I'm definitely open to it. This video is not going to tell you about whether or not it's better to take notes on an iPad with a pen and pencil, because you guys already know all that stuff. You guys know that you gotta find the most comfortable place for you to study. I mean, if you enjoy studying on the back of a moving van that's driven by a frat brother while blasting Blackpink, then you do you. But I'll tell you what this video will tell you. This video will tell you exactly what you need in order to study like a successful student. This is the culmination of everything I've learned in my 22 years of almost studying most of the time. If you follow the steps in this video, I guarantee that you'll get straight A's. And if you do follow all these steps and you don't end up with straight A's, well then you fucked up somewhere along the line and no refund. When you try your best but you don't succeed. Alright, before we dive right into the juicy parts of studying effectively, I just want to briefly go over the strategy part of getting good grades. and a little bit of some housekeeping items, or maybe some myth busters, and just telling you some cold, straight, hard facts. So my first strategy tip is to take a balanced schedule. Don't try to be a hero and take all the hardest classes in one semester. I know this may seem really obvious, but I've been there. When you're signing up for your classes, you see all these cool, interesting classes that you want to take, and you're an intellectual, so you're really tempted to sign up for all of them all at once. The fact is, if you sign up for all the most difficult classes in one semester, the likelihood of you getting good grades in all of them drops significantly. And the fastest and most efficient way of figuring out whether or not a class is difficult is by asking students who took the class previously. Sometimes looking at the course description online is just not enough to gauge the difficulty of a class. I mean, I've taken classes that started off with Intro to blank. And upon taking the class, I learned very quickly that the class was definitely not an intro to anything. And now my second strategy tip is to understand the breakdown per class, depending on its weight in homework assignments, projects, midterm/final exams, and hopefully attendance is not one of them. At the beginning of the semester, you're gonna be super energized. You're gonna be like, oh my God, I care about every single homework assignment. I care about every single midterm exam. I'm gonna give my 150% in each one of these categories because I'm a superstar. I'm gonna end up in this class with an A+++. But let's be real. A few weeks in, you're gonna start to run out of gas and you're gonna have to take some L's somewhere. And you're gonna need to know where to prioritize your wins and losses. So if a class places a lot more emphasis on projects and homework assignments versus midterms and exams, then you should definitely dedicate a majority of your time and effort to where it counts. All right, my third tip is gonna be a cold, hard fact. I'm just gonna say it. Your grade is somewhat predetermined before you even take the class. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? In order to take a rigorous class at a university level and get an A, you're going to need to master the material. And in order to learn anything, any subject very deeply and at that level of mastery, it's gonna take time, right? And the probability of you learning anything at that level in the span of a semester is just very low. What I'm trying to say is that if you're learning something in a college class for the very first time, and it's your first time ever seeing this material, then your chances of getting an A in that class drop by maybe 50%. And I'm not saying that it's completely impossible. I'm just saying that be cognizant that the people who are writing your exams and homework assignments are professors who are experts in the field, or maybe TAs who know the content very well. The odds are just against you. I was taking this one class, I think in my senior year, and the professor told us in the first day of class, what is the secret for getting an A in his class? And no joke, on the PowerPoint slide, he said, the secret to getting an A in my class or any class is knowing when to quit while you're ahead.
It's brutal out here.
I remember hearing this and being like, wow, that was pretty dark. But honestly, get yourself a professor who just tells you how it is. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I agree with quitting. We're not quitters here. So I think there's two ways that you can remedy this. And the first way would be to know the material a little bit before you actually enter the class. But who got time for that, right? I would rather be making YouTube videos than previewing course material. And the second way would be to study very effectively once you're in the class. And I'll be covering that in today's video. All right, get ready for another cold, hard fact. And that's, if you think that you're gonna learn by going to class, then you already lost. We all know that we go to class for two reasons. The first reason being to not feel guilty, and the second reason being to know what's going to be on the exam. I mean, listening to someone talk to you about biology at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning is just the farthest from active learning.
When you try your best, but you don't succeed.
So studying effectively, in my opinion, comes down to only two things. Just two. That's less than three. The first thing you need to do is identify what is relevant and important to this class. And then the second thing you need to do is master whatever that is. And honestly, that's like not even studying for classes, right? That's literally life in two sentences. Life is identifying a target and then hauling ass right towards it. The first thing you need to do is know your professor's version of a subject. Biology taught by Professor X is going to be very different than biology taught by Professor Y. You need to identify what that professor finds important and then go deep in whatever that is. Say you're studying for a midterm on the cell, the unit of life. And your professor cares so much about the mitochondria. They think that the mitochondria is the most important part of the unit. But you're off here studying and grinding and learning about the lysosome. Well, then when you're taking the exam, you're gonna undergo apoptosis. Wait, that's literally the best joke I've ever told on this channel. This is even more true when the subject becomes more complicated, right? So for example, in engineering, the way you set up a system and the assumptions that you're allowed to make when setting up that system are different depending on who you're talking to. And now we have arrived at my second tip for studying effectively, and that's to take practice exams immediately. Now, I would like to present to you something that I call the Megan's ice cream sandwich model. And it goes like this. The breading, the first outer shell of your ice cream sandwich, is to take a look at one practice exam prior to studying. And you don't even need to take the exam intensely or to the fullest extent. But what I do is that I like to read through it briefly and just get a general idea of the types of questions that may appear, because you need to know what game day is gonna look like. You're gonna need to create a framework for your studying. You're gonna reverse engineer, right? You're gonna work backwards from question to content material. And now the filling of our ice cream sandwich is going to be the studying section and reviewing the content or filling in missing gaps of your knowledge. And then the last breading is going to be at the very end, which is going back and taking all of the practice exams. You're going to take those exams for real. And the most important thing when you're taking these practice exams, if you really want to leverage the experience to the fullest extent, is to not look at the answer solution right away. You need to practice building that mindset, forming those neural network connections of arriving to the solution. If you get stuck on a problem and then immediately reference the solution, then you feel good about yourself because you look at the solution and you think, oh yeah, I'll be able to figure that out on game day. But essentially what you're doing is stunting those connections that you need to form between problem setup to problem solution. And in order to make this tip possible, you're gonna need to find the test bank of past exams somewhere, right? And if you go to Berkeley, you would probably be looking at tau beta pi. And the easiest way that you can find these past exams is either from professor who hands them out or from past students who have access to these exams. And if the time permits, then it would be worthwhile to take the most number of exams that you can take. Honestly, what studying for exams essentially is pattern recognition. Like in the weeks leading up or days or hours leading up to the exam, you train and study on these set of past exams, and then you extrapolate or you test on the actual exam that's given to you on exam day. And so actually the last breading part of the ice cream sandwich is gonna be thicker than the first one, you know, because you're taking more exams. All right, so my next tip for studying effectively is to master a concept by covering 360 degrees. So what do I mean by that? So say this is the concept and you cover only, say, 180 degrees of it. You cover this half. But then what's gonna happen is that on the exam, you're gonna be attacked from this other 180 degrees because you haven't covered the full 360. This is really weird. Okay, so how exactly do you do that? How do you master a concept? How do you understand something from all angles? So what I like to do is that I like to explore many different explanations and versions of the same concept. So for example, for one topic, say it's the mitochondria, I'll read the textbook's explanation of the mitochondria. And then what I'll do is that then I'll go to the professor's lecture slides and read her definition of the mitochondria. And then I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch several different videos about the mitochondria. And because these videos are taught by many different people, I get to experience many different versions of their perspective and their explanations of the mitochondria. And then I'll read online, maybe someone's blog post about the mitochondria. So at this point, I've approached the mitochondria from many different explanations and versions. And what that does is that it exposes your mind to a concept in many different environments. And what happens is that if you don't do that, if you only read, say, the textbook's definition of the mitochondria, Well, on the exam, it's not going to ask you fill in the blank for the definition of the mitochondria, where the definition is copy and pasted from the book. Instead, it's going to present the mitochondria in the context of a problem, of a different story. And if you've primed your mind, if you've seen this concept in many different stories, contexts, and explanations, then hopefully your mind will be more nimble and more flexible to adapting to this new scenario. Holy shoot, that was intense. For my next tip, we're gonna get a little philosophical. You need to see both the forest and the trees. By this, I mean you need to see both the little details and the big picture. You need to see how the concepts relate, how these pieces of a larger puzzle fit together. Ultimately, critical thinking or problem solving, which is hopefully what you're going to be doing on the exam, is knowing how to combine different pieces and concepts together so that you can solve one problem. Most likely, the most difficult problems that will show up on your exam are not going to be discrete, right? Where there's a one-to-one mapping between concept and problem. In terms of seeing the little details, I think that's more intuitive, right? You probably do that already when you study. It's probably the most automatic thing where you know all of the definitions of all the concepts, the little details. But I think, in my opinion, seeing the bigger picture is the more difficult part and the part that we tend to leave out. Seeing the bigger picture comes down to two things. The first thing that you could do is layer my studying. So I'll go deep in half of the material one day, deep in the other half next day, and then one day I'll go light across all of the material. I think there's a lot of value in sitting down for one sitting and reviewing start to finish all of the concepts in one day. It's important because it enables me to see how 100% of the content links together. All right, my second tip for obtaining this bird's eye view of the material is to stop taking notes and to start building mind maps instead. In my opinion, taking notes is overrated. In fact, flashcards are overrated. There are two things that I hate in this world. The first being American cheese, and the second being flashcards. I wish that I could find all the flashcards in the world, burn them, create a great big bonfire over which I roast a bunch of s'mores. Okay, so by mind map, what do I mean by a mind map? That sounds like something that you would find in Inception. As an example of a mind map, I will now present my mind map that I created when I took linear algebra in my freshman year. And so as you can see, there are 4 discrete sections, and in each of those 4 discrete sections, there's a bunch of concepts. And what I did was that I created all these connections between the concepts and between the 4 sections. And this is powerful, right? Because say you're in an exam and they present you with the problem and you think back to the mind map that you can now visualize in your mind as you solve this problem. And now you can classify what concept that this problem falls under. And maybe it falls under multiple concepts. But because you have this mind map and because you've sat down and developed and established all these connections between these different concepts, you can sort of guide your intuition for solving this problem, right? Anyway, we must move forward because I am craving some boba milk tea and I still have another tip after this one. Focus on what you don't know rather than what you do know. We all as humans crave to feel comfortable. We all want to feel like we have a warm hug wrapped around us. When we're studying, we like to feel like we're getting somewhere, right? But more likely than not, it's because you're reviewing content that you're already familiar with. So how I like to overcome this is by creating a list where I literally have 2 columns. The first column being what I do know, and the second column being what I don't know. And by listing and clearly delineating your strengths and weaknesses in the content material, you now have some sort of direction for when you're actually studying. Holy shoot, that sounded so responsible. This video seems so out of character. All right. So this last shred of knowledge that I would like to leave you with is potentially the most important thing that I am saying in this entire video. So for all of those suckers who already clicked off, you fucked up. And that is, do not BS yourself. Study with intention. If you sit down to study, it's game time. 1 solid hour of studying is much more effective than 6 hours of having the lecture slides open and a K-drama playing on the side in the background. This is what I want you to do every time you walk into a midterm or a final exam. You need to go to your nearest mirror and you need to look yourself in the eyes and ask yourself, do I really understand this material? Or did I just BS myself and think that I actually do? Alright, that's all I got. Honestly, at the end of the day, don't even listen to me. Just, you do you. You study however you like to study. If you love flashcards, make as many flashcards as you like. Just make sure I'm not around because I might find them and burn them.